5 signs signaling silver will soar soon. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching Yankee Stacking. I really appreciate you watching my videos. It's just exciting to see all your comments, all the views. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I appreciate it. And maybe even give me a thumbs up if you like this video. So as we close in on the end of this second decade of the 21st century, I wanted to highlight 5 signs that I think say to me that silver and gold are going to soar soon. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, Yankee can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, when silver is going to soar. No one can. I think it's soon. In fact, the more I study our economic realities, the more I am convinced that the next decade is it. We're not getting out of the 20s unscathed, people. And if you haven't started stacking silver and gold yet, do it. I don't think you're going to be listening to some Yankee stacking video in 2029 warning about what's coming. It will have come. And there will be absolutely no convincing necessary on my part or anyone else's. That's what I think. But for now, let's just dive into the 5 key economic trouble spots that I see in the U.S. facing us in 2020. Here's the first one. The trade war. Okay, guys. The China trade deal has gone nowhere, okay? For all the talk about a deal, we're really close to a deal. Phase 1 of a deal is imminent. Phase 1 is just about done. Come on. It's just bluster, folks. It's a ruse. Trump threatened to raise the tariffs even higher if a deal couldn't be reached by December 15th. Well, I am videoing this on December 8th. He's got a week. Ain't gonna happen. That was in November. But he said he kind of likes the idea of waiting until the election for the China deal. Come on. Please don't tell me in the comments that our commander-in-tweet is just playing China in a masterful example of the art of the deal. This is just pathetic politics, choreographed to keep the stock market jumping over and over like some, I don't know, like dancing a stick over a dog, all right? I mean, come on. There's no real progress on the trade deal, folks. And we run the scary risk of China detonating a financial bomb on the U.S., really. Remember, a trade war hurts both sides. I get that. But the detonation can get economically obliterated. And that's us. Okay, so that's number 1, the trade war, the first signal. Here's the second signal that I think silver's going to soar soon. U.S. household debt. Oh my word. U.S. debt is now at a high of $14 trillion. 14! That's 1.3 trillion higher than its previous peak in 2008, right after the financial crisis. So auto debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, it all keeps going up and up and up. We'll see what Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the Christmas season holds for both online and brick and mortar stores. But the retail space is really suffering. And this kind of debt, this household debt, could really hinder the holiday spendings. I really think it's going to. And in fact, I'm curious, are you spending more or less this Christmas? Or the same? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to know. I want to take a survey here. It's kind of an informal thing, but I want to know, are you spending more or less this Christmas season? All right, so you might say, hold on, Yankee. We can take on more debt if our economy is roaring, right? Well, yeah, that's generally true. But the economy is anything but roaring, okay? And in fact, that brings me to number 3, the third sign that I think is signaling that silver's going to soar. And that is U.S. GDP is decelerating. GDP. All right, just to make sure people know what that is. GDP is gross domestic product. All right? Think of it as our nation's income, okay? Just like you get income at work. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you get the picture. That's what we're earning, if you will, as a nation. So this 11-year expansion, recovery, expansion, whatever you want to call it, we've been, doing this since the Great Recession, and it's very shallow. I mean, much shallower than in any past expansion in U.S. history, okay? It's lame, folks. And even as lame as it is, it's been fueled by crazy low interest rates and easy money. Most recently, on the easy money side, QE4 repo edition. I don't have time to talk about it, but that's what's fueling this, guys. The Fed has pulled every trick they have had so far, but it is going down. And I know it's global. I know it's not just the U.S., but check this chart out. I put this one together myself, all right? This one shows annual real GDP for the U.S. It's homegrown, guys, okay? So it's it's not as pretty as some of the stuff that the Fed puts out, but it's a Yankee special, okay? It shows real GDP. And I had the data, too, on this. Here, let me show you the data. There it is. Yeah, I'm not a big numbers. I like pictures, okay? So here it is, real GDP. Now, by the way, real GDP, just to explain that, it's the total value of all the final goods and services that an economy produces during a given year. But it's adjusted for inflation. Okay, it takes inflation into account. All right, so back here you see in the 1930s, GDP 1.3. This is during the Depression, okay? And then, of course, we had World War II, and you can see it spiked way up to 6%. Again, this is average for the whole year. Yeah, we were cranking, okay? After the war, we were in recovery. We're very productive. Our manufacturing was the envy of the world, okay? This is boom years, right? And then, after that, in the 50s and 60s, again, these were wonderful, productive years in our nation's history. 4.5% real GDP, okay? And then we go into the 60s. The 70s and 80s and 90s. Even during the 70s, high inflation, stagflation actually. Look at the output for our country, 3% for these 3 decades. Okay. Now look at this. This is the 2000s, the 21st century. The 2000s during the Great Recession, 1.8, and here we are at 2.2 so far this year, averaging for the last 20 years, around 2% real GDP. Guys, is this the new normal? I mean, what are the 2020s going to bring? What's the next 2 decades going to show? 1%? And, this is tied to the 4th sign. Okay, so that was the 3rd sign. U.S. GDP decelerating. Okay, but it's tied to the 4th one, and that is debt to GDP. Okay, the national debt is $23 trillion, which is not only growing, guys, but it's growing faster. It's like $1 trillion every year. It's in a few years, it may be even close to 1.5 or even $2 trillion a year. It is insanely out of control. Now, the only other time our debt to GDP ratio was as high as 105% was at the end of World War II. Again, I talked about that in the last chart, okay? I told you, we are a creditor nation. We were a producing nation. Not now, okay? Corporations are also borrowing at extremely high levels. Well, why not? The money's cheap, right? Thank you, Fed. In fact, corporate debt to GDP is higher than at any time during the past 3 recessions. And Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, told Congress that the Fed needs to find a way to fix this debt to GDP problem. You think? But frankly, I think they can't. I really don't think they can do it. I think they know they can't do it. Okay? But the Fed continues to be the largest buyer of U.S. Treasuries. They keep pushing the problem forward with debt. I think we're going to see a lot higher debt to GDP in the coming years. I can't imagine it not being that way. And here's something else. Let's remember this. When we live as a nation beyond our means, it steals from our children's future and our grandchildren's future. Just like if you racked up all your credit cards to the max, while at the same time making less and less and less at your job. You know, this actually means a lot to me as a father of 3. I look at my kids, okay? I have a millennial and her new husband who's just starting out as a couple. It's wonderful to see them get their own place and work hard together, balance their budgets, live within their means. I'm proud of them. I also have 2 Gen Zs. Well, they're still under my care. And I have to wonder about their future. I've taught them all to live within their means, to save, and with little stacks, teaching them how to stack too, right? But what economic hope do they have with a nation that's just stealing from them? All right, I'm getting pretty worked up. I need to settle down. Talk about the 5th sign that I see on the horizon that I think is going to cause silver to soar. And it is malinvestments. Malinvestments. So what is that? Well, malinvestments was a term developed by the Austrian school of economic thought, which, by the way, if you don't know, I adhere to that. Okay, not the Keynesian models and methods, but the Austrian school of thought for economics. And it defines malinvestments as any bad investment made due to artificially low cost of credit and an unsustainable increase in the money supply. In other words, because central banks make debt cheap and print money, governments, corporations, cities and towns, individuals like you and me, we're tempted to gamble more and more with investments in order to make a decent return. This is a big problem, folks, particularly in the bond market. Not so much the stock market directly, the bond market. That's one of the biggest bubbles that we need to be concerned about, especially with pension funds. Okay? So this increasing and ongoing quest for more and more yield is going to backfire. The longer rates are low, the more risk fund managers are going to need to take in order to meet their goals, their liabilities. Pension funds. All right, let me just talk about pension funds for a minute. I'll give that as an example. It's not the only one. There's piles of them, but let's talk pensions, all right? Pension funds must earn annually around 7 to 8%. And how are they going to get 7 to 8% in this economy? Are you kidding me? You're lucky to get 2%. It's crazy. They do it by investing in riskier and riskier investments. That's the way they do it. Many of the bonds they hold, okay, are just on the edge of junk bond status. And they're going to become junk bonds during the next recession. You know that public, and here's the deal, public pension funds aren't allowed to hold junk bonds. They can't. If they're rated junk, they got to sell them. So they'll sell them into the market. And when they all go to sell into the stock market is going to tank. So where does that leave us? Other than thinking Yankee is an eternal pessimist, which I'm not. I'm just a realist, folks. I'm going to end the way I started by saying I think silver and gold are going to soar soon. Soon, really. Again, I think this next decade is going to be unlike anything we've ever witnessed. The economic backdrop I just painted for you, and it was, in broad brushstrokes, of course, that just shows me that we're in a precarious situation. And tangible assets like silver and gold, they're an absolute must. Now, yeah, I got some work to do. I'm getting there. But, and here it's a bit early, okay, for New Year's resolutions. I know that. I mean, right now, like I said, I'm doing this on the 8th. Fine. But I want you to get ready to resolve that if you haven't begun your stacking journey, you're going to do so in 2020. Please. And if you're already a fellow stacker with me, think about increasing your rate of stacking as much as your personal finances will allow. Why? Because time's running out. Well, thanks again for watching Yankee Stacking. These were the 5 signs that I think signal silver is going to soar soon. And maybe gold too. Yeah, probably gold too. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, hit the like button. And as always, I hope your day is A-OK.